This was a team that was down 10.
Yeah.
This was a team that was down 24 in the playoffs. This was a team that was down 10 in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. So if I'm going to sit there and say it with my chest, dynasty, here it comes, y'all got to make it look a little easier in terms of arriving at that destination, and they didn't. But now let's look at history, as I'm the full screen king.
Oh, God.
And let's talk about back-to-back, just back-to-back, forget dynasty, back-to-back Super Bowl winners. Of the 54, we got one to be determined. Obviously, that's the Chiefs. But I see 30% of the teams miss the playoffs. You mean I won a Super Bowl in the next year? 30% just missed the playoffs entirely? And then 61% of those teams didn't even advance to the conference championship. I'm using history and trying to map it onto the Kansas City Chiefs of today for reality, but we haven't seen this occur, Acho. Since when? The Patriots did it? What was that, 17 years ago? Chill, big dog.
Here's my first problem, Marcellus. Not everyone went to Columbia, okay? That graphic is about as complicated as a graphic I've ever seen.
That's why I gave you the most important number. You see that shaded area? That's more of the teams that didn't do it.
No. But I'm going to reel it back in, and I'm going to do this off top of the dome like an analyst, like we get paid to do.
Okay.
Think about the competition for them to be a dynasty. Let's look in the AFC, and I'm just going to go down the list. I don't even see the players. Buffalo Bills, their quarterback, TBD. Miami Dolphins, their quarterback is old. Their other quarterback is injured. New England Patriots, what's Cam Newton going to do? New York Jets, their quarterback sees ghosts. Baltimore Ravens, okay, he's checked. Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow's going to have to improve in spite of what they can do. Cleveland Browns, their quarterback an enigma. Pittsburgh Steelers, their quarterback is old. Houston, Texas, Deshaun Watson has to win in spite of Bill O'Brien. Indianapolis Colts, their quarterback is old. Jaguars, no quarterback. Titans, their quarterback caught lightning in a bottle. Who else? Denver Broncos, their quarterback is young. Raiders, they don't even like their quarterback. And then you got the Chargers, they draft a quarterback in the top 10, top 5, and they're not even playing him. So I just gave you the whole AFC. And the only two names I didn't stutter over was Lamar and Deshaun. Those are the only two names, the only two teams that can stop this Chiefs team from being a dynasty. I just riddled that off in the last 40 seconds.
Yeah.
There's no stopping point for the Chiefs being a dynasty.
Too much Bill slander in there for my taste. Let's bring in somebody who knows a thing or two about football. LeVar Arrington, our guy. LeVar, settle this beef right here. Are the Chiefs the NFL's next dynasty?
No, they are not. They are not. And listen, there's been a lot said. I tend to go with the heaviest is the head who wears the crown, right? They're going to get everybody's best shot. You throw a lot of the AFC names out there, and that's interesting because before you talk Super Bowl, as Marcellus illustrated so well in the full screen, you're talking about 30% miss the playoffs. Well, think about this, guys. Their schedule is not easy. And you just went through the AFC like it was something that was going to be easy for them to navigate. When you look at who they have to play, I can easily see them losing 7 games. You think about the Ravens, the Patriots, the Bills, the Bucks, the Saints, and the Falcons are all teams that are more than personnel capable to win against this Kansas City team. Oh, and by the way, they could lose tomorrow in their home opener of their defense, but I'll touch on that later. You mentioned the defense of their crown, Marcellus. I'll touch on that on my next point.
25 teams since the salary cap era started in the early 90s. And let's just be real about this. Only 2 have won it back-to-back. Forget dynasty, just back-to-back. We're talking about the Denver Broncos, and we're talking about the New England Patriots. And when you look at this situation, it doesn't matter your pieces. It doesn't matter how we look at the roster. It doesn't matter how we look at the schedule. It matters that road ahead, you're going to have hell to pay. Because, one, you have to fight off the opponent that is going to be landing between your own ears in terms of complacency. They're saying all the right things right now, and that's why there is a thing called the Super Bowl hangover. For whatever reason, not every single man on this roster is going to go back to square one with the same amount of intensity and hunger. Andy Reid has talked about this. Andy Reid has even tried to make sure that these guys understand the sense of urgency that's necessary every single play to even put yourself in position to go out there and have a dynasty. But even back-to-back is going to be a daunting task. What happened to the Legion of Boom and them going to go back-to-back and create a dynasty? What happened to the 2010 Packers and they have 15 guys on IR and the next year they go 15-1 when they're completely healthy? And what happened to that back-to-back? What happened to all the times in the mid-90s we saw the Green Bay Packers when they had Reggie White and those boys supposed to go and have a dynasty? Like, we've just heard the false reports of dynasty before. And my last point is just kind of interesting in the universe. Andy Reid has been coaching as a head coach 21 years, and he finally gets one. And the Chiefs finally get their second Super Bowl in 50 years. Y'all think they just gonna come back-to-back and create a dynasty like that fast? There's going to be a war of attrition in the process.
Here's the problem with what you just said. There is no attrition, at least not internally within the Chiefs. Supposed to return 20 of their 22 starters. The only reason they didn't is because 2 opted out. So now they're returning 18 of their 22 starters. But consider this. Consider how much better the Chiefs actually are than everybody else. Even when they struggled, Marcellus, and you said this, I saw it with my own eyes, I was there, we was all talking about the game. Even when they struggled in the Super Bowl, they still won. Not because they necessarily were going to be the better team that day, as we use as a football cliche. It's because they were head and shoulders better than the 49ers if we get down to it. Again, I've used this analogy before. I watch Usain Bolt, 100-meter 2015 world champion. He slips out of the block, stumbles, his heels click, nearly falls face first, still wins. Not because he ran a better race that day, but because he's that much better. Last point I'm going to say here to just conclude this whole thought is this. Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl before losing a game by more than 7 points. He won a Super Bowl before losing a game by more than 7 points. Even on Patrick Mahomes' off day, that's still better than most teams' best day. That's why they're going to be a dynasty.
Strong.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on this, and I'm going to say, no, you're totally incorrect on this, Mr. Macho Acho. And I gotta be honest here. The biggest question here, you continue to talk about all the continuity and everybody who's coming back and how many starters are coming back. Take a look at this defense, fellas, all right? When you look at this defense, your linebackers are in question. Now, you mentioned Tyrann Mathieu, right? They got some guys at that position, right? Frank Clark, they got Chris Jones, right? Those are your guys. But once you get outside of that, you're going to have to start the question, can they stop the run? You look at their linebacking core. Can you stop the run? And then you say, wow, in a passing league, can they stop the pass? Because that's going to be important when you have a guy that puts up the ball the way that Patrick Mahomes is. If it's a miss, you're going to have to play defense. So let's take a look at their secondary, right? It's a very unproven secondary. Biggest question mark? Okay. You got the safety, Daniel Sorensen. All right. First-year starter, 6th-round draft pick. What is he going to do? We don't know. He led the team in tackles a few years back, but we don't know what that means. Does that mean that their defense wasn't that good?
I like Daniel, though.
You doing all this talking, LeVar.
He's okay. He's okay.
Nice.
Let's keep going.
I feel you.
Travaris, all right? Travarius Ward, Rashad Fenton, Antonio Hamilton. Are they ballers? Do we know who they are?
Somebody's on OurLads.com.
It doesn't matter. LeVar, there's a quote.
Oh, it matters.
There's a quote. They say love covers a multitude of sins. You want to know what else does? Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes covers a multitude of sins.
That's why you're making the mistake of thinking they're going to be.
I'm not.
You're making a mistake.
I'm not. 2 years ago,
you got to play defense.
Chiefs had the #1 offense.
You got to play defense.
Sure, you do. You have to play defense eventually, but the Chiefs only started playing defense week 11 of this past season.
That's real.
Remember, the first 11 weeks of the season, Chiefs defense was atrocious. But guess what? They turned it on for a little bit, and they won. What happened in the Super Bowl? Chiefs defense wasn't all that stout. But remember, what's the best defense? A really good offense. If the Chiefs are already up 24-0, you can't run the ball.
It's a bad argument because that San Francisco took their foot off the gas and allowed the Kansas City Chiefs to make some plays. Yes, they did. Yes, they did. They decided to play it a little safe.
I don't know if Love or Mahomes covers a multitude of sins, but I do know when you're talking about continuity going forward, sooner or later, some of those other players who can't get paid because everybody else already has gotten paid are going to be faced with a question. Do I want this dynasty or do I want dinner? And guess what? These dudes are going to start saying, I got to get my money. And then you're going to start to see the attrition accrue.
Show me
Coming up,
defense first.
time to drop some knowledge on Dak Prescott and a few others with something